thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. And today, our conversation will center on patronizing made in Nigeria goods. Of course, this is on the premise of the recently signed Nigeria First policy by Mr. President. And we do have our guest joining us via Zoom this morning. Thank you so much, Charles Olujede, for joining us on the program today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right, let's begin this way. I'm sure you're also privy to the policy that was signed recently by Mr. President, asking that Nigeria and Nigerians, patronize made in Nigeria goods. But what can you make of that policy, seeing that it is the first official document that Nigeria will be signing in recent times?
It's a beautiful initiative. What can be argued is that even in the past, we have had similar policies where we try to encourage people to buy Nigeria. So while this is commendable, we must also think about why those formal situations did not particularly yield as much fruit as we expected. So that in the implementation of this particular one, we will avoid all the pitfalls of the past and be able to make this count for us this time around.
At the top of your fingers, Charles, can you pinpoint why some of those policies did not work or did not work accurately? One
of the primary reasons they do fail is the tone or at the leadership level. So when you ask people to buy Nigeria, then the person that is championing that advocacy at the highest level and at all levels of leadership must also show example.
Right.
So when people see that there is a disconnect between the words of the leaders and what they are being asked to do, it is the beginning of the erosion of confidence in such policies, and it is a key reason why it fails a lot of time. Of course, another reason is probably because of quality issues, and there are also some other social, cultural contexts about how we actually admire everything that is foreign. Just by the way, I saw a postal yesterday. It said, Pan-African Conference is holding in Kenya. That Pan-African Conference, all the 7 speakers were white. So there are problems about the social side of things, how we perceive everything that is imported as superior. So there's need for citizens' education around those social side of things.
Okay, Jibala.
Okay, Charles, if these Nigeria First policies effectively implemented, what do we stand to gain in terms of the economy and, of course, manufacturer themselves? What do they stand to gain, especially those at the lower cadre of the economy, the SMEs and, of course, artisans?
It's a great deal, both for SMEs and non-SMEs. If you look at non-SMEs that are car assembly companies in Nigeria, for example, just imagine that 50% of the public sector procurement of vehicles in Nigeria are from car assemblies that are in Nigeria, the Innocents and the rest of them that are Nigerian vehicles. It will transform that space. It will enhance the capacities of those companies to record more sales, to employ more people, to even extend the capacity of those plants to produce those vehicles. And we will begin to also see transformation in the quality of what is being produced by virtue of more fund that is available to R&D and modern technology.
Right. So
for the smaller...
Go ahead, please.
For the smaller businesses, you see, most of what they suffer from has to do with the social part that I mentioned about how we tend to appreciate everything foreign to the detriment of local production. But now, if we're saying anything we can produce here, we don't want it imported. Nigerians are going to, look in the direction of local production, it will boost their sales, it will grow these businesses, it will create a multiplier effect in the economy as these businesses grow and are able to expand and employ people greatly. So the benefit for the economy is huge across all strata.
Right. Right. So if we look at one of the reasons why the president, of course, signs that particular policy into existence, he did mention that it is part of his vision of industrializing Nigeria. We know that before now, Nigeria has been a country where, well, a lot of the locals and also foreign internationals have had, their factories and industries here, cottage industries. But at the moment, there are issues. One is power supply. So if Mr. President is particular about industrializing Nigeria once again, how do we begin to approach this, especially from the supply of electricity?
We are never going to be industrialized with 5,000 megawatts of electricity. Even Ikeja alone, when Ikeja was Ikeja, when all the Ikeja industrial estate was booming and all those plants on Obakran and the rest of them were firing, the entire 5,000 might not be enough for them to consume. That is the reality of the situation.
Okay.
We are not going anywhere without fixing electricity matter. That is the reality. So the industrialization or no industrialization, we won't even be able to produce competitively, which is part of what will frustrate the initiative. When you produce, and by the time you look at the selling price of the item that has been produced, or you look at the cost price, it is 10 naira. Meanwhile, someone could have brought in that same item, probably even a better quality at 5 naira. The question is, what would be the incentive for people to want to buy an item for 10 naira when they know it could be produced for 5 naira?
Okay.
Okay, aside from power now, what are the other logistics that we need to put in place in terms of infrastructure and, of course, leveraging on technology to see this policy through?
Of course, we have serious infrastructure gap, which we need to fix. Our attitude to R&D is also very poor. So research and development, we must be able to invest in research and development and also deploy technology as necessary. If you take the food space, for example, one of the problems we have in the food space is that a lot of what is produced go to rot. Every year, in some product category, as much as 40% of what is produced gets rotten. Every year. That is a space, that is a gap for infrastructure. Infrastructure in the space of storage facility, infrastructure in the space of connectivity between the centers of production and the centers of consumption. If there are no roads, no rails to connect those things, we will continue to have those problems. So we need to invest in infrastructure to be able to make the best of those products.
Right. As much as we are talking about, made in Nigeria goods and making some of these goods more appealing to the consumers, do we all need to leave this to the doorstep of the federal government alone, or what are the roles of state governments in this particular situation, knowing that some of these factories are based in states across Nigeria?
Well, generally for government, their duty is to provide the right environment for the private people to do what they know how to do best.
Okay.
So it's not just a matter of federal level.
Okay.
Even at the local government,
right,
there must be harmony of policy, and there must be harmony in terms of how we create the right environment for businesses to thrive. I'll give you an example. I had a parking space in front of my office. We paid to the local government when we were getting that space. A few months after, the state showed up and said, oh, you're not supposed to have paid to the local government. It is we that you ought to have paid to. So who am I to pay to? I've seen similar things when it came to waterfront. I had an office once upon a time in front of close to the waters. Lagos State Water, whatever, came around. The federal government came around. Everybody was coming around to come and ask for money for the same thing.
Right.
We must be able to harmonize all these things and ensure that we create the right environment for these businesses to do well. Once we create the right environment, the private sector will come into that space and do what they know how to do best. And we'll all enjoy the results.
Okay.
Okay, Charles, how does that connect with the tax reform bills of Mr. President? You just raised some issues now about double taxation coming from different tiers of government. How does that connect with the tax reform bills? And of course, what role do you think the BOI can also play in driving this policy?
Okay, the tax policies are long overdue. I'm happy that finally we were able to make some progress in that respect, because one of the things that those policies, those tax laws are meant to address are issues of this multiple taxation. You have situations in which all sort of agencies of government at various levels are attacking the same taxpayer for the same taxes. And that burdens the business. It not only burdens the business, it creates rooms for graft and corruption in the taxation space, in which people are actually paying extortion and not tax. So the money you pay, somebody comes around, oh, your radio levy, yeah, you come and pay 100,000. You say, I'm not going to pay 100,000. Take this 20,000 and go away. The 20,000 doesn't get to the government. The guy simply puts it in his pocket. So it helps a great deal to transform that space. It's long overdue, and I hope that the little progress that we have been able to make in that, well, let me call it little progress, I think it's a significant progress actually, that we'll be able to implement, and we'll follow through to ensure that it will dovetail into the benefits that we expect. Part of it, for example, is to raise the threshold for taxation for small businesses.
Right.
Yeah, so say if you're not making this much revenue, don't even bother. In fact, you don't even have to register for this kind of taxes at all. So it helps a great deal, yeah.
So what role, sorry, Abimbola, can the Bank of Industry also play in seeing this policy through to help manufacturers?
Well, the Bank of Industry has been doing its bit, but I think this is a time to come more into that space because of certain reforms, especially the tax reform that are now in place, to be able to make money available to SME. I know at a point in time, because of all sort of abuses that happened with some government-related funding that were provided, government at some point said, okay, all these things has to stop now. There's a freeze, but we cannot freeze some of these things forever. We now have to come back into that space and use the instrumentality of agencies like the BOI to ensure that we can begin to reach out to the critical sectors of the economy with financing support that will help to achieve what we seek to achieve.
All right, so we've directed attention to government in ensuring that there is an enabling environment and, of course, the laws are workable for the people. Can we also quickly look at the role of the manufacturers themselves? Sometimes we also do not pay attention to details and issues around packaging, issues around outlook of some of these things. What are some of these things that the manufacturers themselves also need to pay attention to so that these goods can also be attractive not only to local consumers, but at the end of the day to international consumers as well?
Yeah, there are quality issues. If the transformation we are expecting starts to come in, it is expected that all these SMEs, for example, will be able to pay more attention to issues of R&D.
Okay.
And R&D does not stop only at the actual product, but it extends even onto the packaging.
Right.
Of those products, yes, and give us qualities that can compete. If the quality they are producing cannot compete, the force of the law will not be enough to compel consumption of local products. As a matter of fact, people will smuggle in those foreign products that they believe are of the right quality. But let me also say that on one side, there are quality issues. On the other side is that social part of things that thinks that anything foreign is superior. And most of the time, they are not superior. So we must, put in some advocacy in that respect to let us know that local things, a lot of times, are of good quality. And where the gaps are in packaging and all the rest, we can bridge it over time.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Charles, if this policy is effectively implemented now, do you see it insulating the Nigerian economy from the global shock that we usually experience in terms of crude oil? The prices?
It definitely will. If it is able to shore up our industrialization, if we're able to get more productive, because productivity has actually dwindled dramatically, especially in the non-service area. Our manufacturing is not doing as well as it could be. So if we're able to step things up from the manufacturing side of things, which will automatically also engender services. As you are revving up manufacturing, it will drive up services as well. Definitely, we will begin to rescue ourselves gradually from the grasp of the oil issue. If we are able to offer things, I'm not even talking of outside of Africa now. Okay. If we have enough to offer to Africa, we will earn foreign exchange. It will reduce our dependence on crude oil for foreign exchange. Even the crude oil, we need to think in terms of the refined product, so that if it is only Africa that we are offering refined products to, we're able to earn foreign exchange and reduce our dependence for foreign exchange on the sale of crude oil. As it is today, the chunk of our foreign exchange earnings come from the sale of crude oil. And anything that happens to crude oil automatically affects us, as it were.
All right, so where we started this conversation from was the fact that government needs to lead by example. And one of the things that government intends to do is to ensure that the Bureau of Public Enterprises or the Bureau of Public Procurement revises and enforce procurement regulations that give clear advantage to local manufacturers and service providers. Even though perhaps this is also at the moment, functioning, but what are some of the things that you see that if stepped up, the advantage that local manufacturers may derive from this policy?
Well, local manufacturers definitely will be able to have an improved patronage from in-country if we drive it appropriately. I've used the example of cars. I once lived in one other part of the world where all the police vehicles, you will never see a police vehicle that is a foreign made in that particular country. All their police vehicles are the vehicles that are made and owned, are made in that country. But yeah, that could extend to several parts of how we live, including even what we consume. There are fake notions about how some foreign food are better than local food. It took me to read a Caucasian American book to understand that tubers are healthier food than most of the grains. So, but if I tell someone today that what you make from gari and a proper afang soup is more nutritious than pizza, you're not going to win that war.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So,
okay, land on that, and then we'll probably just need to.
No, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so I was just going to ask that perhaps did you have any other thing to say before we wrap up this conversation or an advice to Nigerians generally, as well as, because I know that we've talked about the role of government here, but as a people, what should also be our role here, and what should be our goal? Because as a people, we also tend to have this advantage or tilt towards foreign goods as against patronizing local manufactured products.
We just need to switch on our patriotism cap. And I will drive that home with an example. I don't know if my friend Vikram will get to watch this program. Vikram is Indian. When we hired him some years ago, when he was coming from Abuja to Lagos, he insisted that he wanted to stay in an Indian hotel. We found an Indian hotel and put him there. We wanted to register him for an HMO. He requested for an Indian hospital.
Oh, wow.
We gave him an Indian hospital. Whenever all the Indian restaurant that I know in Lagos, it was the guy that took me there. We wanted to hire techies. After he has looked at some of the CVs we received, he said, look, I can get you some turkeys from India and they will be cheaper than all these prices that we are getting. You say, before you say Jack Robinson, he had flooded us with like 10, 20 CVs from India. We ended up hiring 4 of those guys from India that day. So I don't know. There is something about, if you see, what's the name of that, a Tata car in Lagos, go and look at who is sitting in that car. You'll be shocked.
It's an Indian
so there is something about patriotism and consuming your own. And Nigerians need to put on their caps of patriotism to help us drive the success of that policy.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Charles Olujede, for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, Ajibola, we've been chatting with Charles, and I think, of course, the patriotism part is one part that we all as Nigerians...
We also have a role to play.
We need to do better. We all need to do better. All right, that's our peace offering on the conversation today. Many thanks for watching the program. By God's grace, tomorrow morning at 10 will be another time to join us. Of course, we'll leave you now in the hands of our outside broadcast team right there at the Alausa Press Center. I am Abimbola Bello.
And I am Ajibola Joshua.